In a world where climate change is both a business opportunity with trillions of dollars at stake and a political agenda, this documentary exposes a web of deception and corporate lies woven by the deep state and the mainstream media.
This is WordFest 6. Solutions everywhere.
It's a wonderful business opportunity, okay? You want climate, we'll give you climate.
There's a huge amount of money involved. This is a huge, big money scam.
There are not just now billions, but there are trillions of dollars at stake.
It's a story of self-interest and big government funding.
People like me, our careers depend on funding of climate research. This is what I've been doing just about my whole career. This is what the other climate researchers are doing with their whole career. They don't want this to end.
If CO2 isn't having the huge negative impacts that we claimed it was having originally, how are we going to stay in business?
A lot of people's livelihoods depend on it. They're not going to give that up.
So the hoax is about carbon emission. Oh, there's so much carbon emission. This is fraud. I won't describe what is happening.
This is a story of the corruption of science.
There's no such thing as a climate emergency happening on this planet now. There's no evidence of one.
The climate alarm is nonsense, you know, it's a hoax. I've never liked hoax. I think scam is a better word, but I'm willing to live with hoax.
It's a story about the bullying and intimidation of anyone who dares to challenge the climate alarm.
To speak up against or about climate change in any sort of skeptical way was essentially career suicide.
Activists are even calling for any skepticism to be criminalized.
It's a wonderful way to increase government power. If there's an existential threat out there that's worldwide, well, you need a powerful worldwide government, you know, to cope with it.
We see all these kind of authoritarian measures being adopted in the name of saving the planet.
You've suddenly got the population under control all over the world.
Fossil fuels is a myth. Hydrocarbons are renewable energy, created by high-temperature chemical reactions between the Earth's core and mantle. The idea that CO2 causes climate change is another laughable myth. The sun is not static. The real reason of changing temperature is that the sun-Earth distance varies due to what is known as solar inertial motion, which is the movement of the sun following the barycenter of the solar system, not the geometric center. Water vapor is the only real greenhouse gas with any effect on warming. CO2 should increase, not decrease, to green the planet further. Global warming saves lives while cooling ends many more. It is all a historical con by the oligarchic class which funds all scientific establishments in order to defraud the naive and gullible through further taxation and hand out public money to private energy companies in the form of faux green subsidies.
I told you that the biggest problem in the world is deception. And those who are masters of the art want to make sure that others have no voice to be able to give a different narrative. They want to be the only ones to speak. Just to let you understand the clandestine work on climate change.
Climate change. Climate change. Climate change. Climate change.
Our planet's climate has changed throughout history, alternating between ice ages and warmer periods. Earth has been through at least 5 major ice ages. So if the climate has always changed, why is climate change such a big issue today?
It's about trying to have a monopoly on science for another super control. Let's use the very basic illustrations and analogies. Human beings take in oxygen and emit carbon dioxide. Plants produce oxygen and they use carbon dioxide. Now, It's easy for us to know that we do emit carbon dioxide. All right? You have to study some more to realize that plants actually give up oxygen and use carbon dioxide. You can't just know, because you know you breathe. You inhale oxygen. You exhale carbon dioxide. But you don't see plants. You don't see that happening with plants. You don't know. You don't know by looking. There had to be some further study to come to that conclusion. So it would have been easy for us to say, now, if we increase in the world, we're gonna consume all the oxygen. We're gonna consume it. And I dare say, all the oxygen in the world is not given by plants only.
CO2, it's the gas we associate with climate change, but it's also needed for life on Earth to function normally. How our planet manages the levels of CO2 is called the carbon cycle. CO2 is released into the atmosphere, for example, by animals' respiration, forest fires, even agriculture. Plants reabsorb the CO2 through photosynthesis. But in the 1800s, that process started to change radically. It started with fossil fuels, sources of energy trapped deep underground from the fossilized remains of plants and animals. For the fuel to power everything from your car, to the furnace in your home or office building, to the plane you take on your next vacation. We owe the modern world to them. CO2 is a relatively simple molecule composed of one atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen. When heat from the Earth's surface gets beamed back into space, it gets absorbed by the CO2 in the atmosphere. As the CO2 absorbs that energy, its molecules move faster and faster. And as they do, they transmit heat energy around to other molecules, causing them to move faster as well. That cycle repeats itself over and over, trapping heat energy and warming the planet in the process. All because of a naturally occurring molecule that's being emitted into our atmosphere at levels that have risen exponentially since the middle of the 20th century. Matthew Osman is an assistant professor of climate science at the University of Cambridge. He says Earth's atmosphere naturally contains greenhouse gases that make life on Earth possible.
Without CO2, life on Earth actually wouldn't be possible. It's estimated that without carbon dioxide, Earth's surface would be somewhere in the ballpark of 30 to 35 degrees Celsius cooler than it is at present.
We all are said to produce over 20 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually, and that needs to be brought down to zero. There have been complaints by certain individuals and organizations that the amount of carbon dioxide that is released is too much, and that there has to be a reduction of the carbon dioxide that's released into the atmosphere by billions of people around the world, not just machinery, etc. That is one. But that the amount coming out of humans is so much because of the population.
Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero.
Those that produce carbon dioxide, and that this is not good for the world. All right? So carbon dioxide must be reduced.
Why remove the gas of life? And without carbon dioxide, you have no life on Earth. And if we halved the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we would probably have no plants, and the whole animal kingdom would collapse. We can live in a very high carbon dioxide rich atmosphere. Life has in the past. Every time in the geological past we've had a carbon dioxide rich atmosphere, we have had a massive expansion of ecosystems. Evolution has been driven very hard by this. We love carbon dioxide. We live on a carbon dioxide rich planet. We could not survive without it. So why should we be removing plant food from the atmosphere when it hasn't been shown that it drives global warming?
But you know, they think that God was a fool for saying, go into the world and multiply. God, he didn't know he needed more oxygen. Oh, there's so much carbon emission. Yes, but you don't have a monopoly on science to be able to tell us that there will be no balance. And I'm warning, this is not about carbon emission. It's about trying to have a monopoly on science for another super control.
More CO2 is good for the world. It's not bad for the world. And so it's absurd to be trying to reduce CO2. We're in a CO2 famine now compared to what is normal for plants. And just about any plant, if you give it more CO2, and a lot more, it will do better. If you look from satellites, Australia is a poster boy of greening of the entire world, especially Western Australia. So it's unbelievable that they've managed to turn this beneficial gas, a part of life, into a threat.
The equation on CO2 is actually a very straightforward one. If you sum up the CO2 that gets emitted, that leads to a temperature increase. And that temperature increase leads to some very negative effects. The effects on the weather, perhaps worse, the indirect effects in that the natural ecosystems can't adjust to these rapid changes, and so you get ecosystem collapses. Now, the exact amount of how you map from a certain increase in of CO2 to what temperature will be and where the positive feedbacks are, there's some uncertainty there, but not very much. And there's certainly uncertainty about how bad those effects will be, but they will be extremely bad.
But they will be extremely bad. It's not true. It's a lie. It's founded on a lie. It's founded on a lie. They created the data. They're lying to you.
The equation has four factors. Thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines.
Did you hear that? It says if we do a really great job. Now, that great job is about bringing the CO2 to near zero. And then you got people and their services they provide and so on and so forth. So the number one responsible is people. But then it says if we do a really great job with what? New vaccines. That means new types of vaccines, not the vaccines before. So they're coming up with these novel vaccines. Do you need another interpreter? Should I speak another language for you to understand what that means? What he's telling you is they're going to use vaccines to bring that number to close to zero. That means reducing the population drastically through vaccines.
I asked the top scientists on this several times, do we really have to get down to near zero? Can't we just, cut it in half or a quarter? And the answer is that until we get near to zero, the temperature will continue to rise. And so that's a big challenge. It's very different than saying, we're a 12-foot high truck trying to get under a 10-foot bridge and we can just sort of squeeze under. This is something that has to get to zero.
And the prescribed solution was that everything had to be done to cut down on the amount of carbon dioxide that is released into the atmosphere. And there are two ways of doing it. One is population reduction. The second is the mask.
I want to talk just very briefly about the energy policy, or the suicidal energy policy that Great Britain has been pursuing now for 15 years and even longer. I was on the Environment Committee in the European Union, and I've never heard so much nonsense talked in all my life. There are 10,000 researchers in all for the European Parliament when I was there, and I threw open a challenge to all researchers of every political party in every country if they could show me any correlation between atmospheric carbon dioxide and temperature and weather. None could, simply because there is none. And this is why we haven't been able to debate this on mainstream TV, which is where most people get their information. There has been no serious debate. There has been plenty of people appearing on your TV screens. There have been celebrities, royals, actors and actresses, goodness knows, but very, very few independent scientists, and yet there are thousands of them who do not accept the hypothesis that man-made carbon dioxide is going to cause some form of apocalyptic end to the planet. It's nonsense. And it's WEF sponsored because it's about political control. Because we are going into some sort of suicidal pact here in Great Britain over this subject with net zero. Net zero, which is absurd, impossible, unnecessary, and we're now tripling the number of wind turbines we're going to have. But 3 times FA is still FA. It's 3 times nothing. It's a waste of time. We've got solar panels now being distributed around Yorkshire. Yorkshire, solar panels. You know, I love Yorkshire, but the sun don't shine here very much, to be brutally frank. It's absolute madness.
So they keep blaming human beings for being the problem. They say that we're emitting so much carbon dioxide. Can they tell us how much carbon dioxide is already in the atmosphere and how much is required to be there? And how they measured it?
Look, if we had definitive proof that CO2 was causing serious problems and we could prove it, don't you think they would write that down on a piece of paper somewhere so people could read it? They don't have definitive proof, period.
The CO2 agenda is a hoax. There is no proof that carbon dioxide is causing Earth warming.
I'm a student of the philosophy and history of science, and I know that the scientific method has not been applied in such a way as to prove that carbon dioxide is causing the Earth to warm.
Do you think in a few years, say 50 years from now, people go, that was a really stupid period in our history when we tried to change all our energy policies to cut this gas?
I am firmly of the belief that the future will show that this whole hysteria over climate change was a complete fabrication.
What is causing climate change? Is it carbon dioxide?
Yes, carbon dioxide pollution is a major contributor.
Okay, so can I ask you, this is not a trick question, what percentage of the Earth's air is carbon dioxide?
Oh, I don't know.
And I say, hang on, you don't know what percentage of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide, and yet you're prepared to stand the economy on its head to address a problem, the detail of which you don't know. So when I then explain that the percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, Alice, is how much? Alice, how much of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere?
To answer the question, Scott Morrison has said he believes in climate change and that he wants to do something about it.
Alice, how much carbon dioxide is the problem? How much carbon dioxide is there in the atmosphere?
I'm not a scientist. I don't know.
Well, hang on. If you're going to argue the case, you ought to know. It's 0.04%. And of that 0.04%, human beings around the world create 3%. And of that 3%, Australia creates 1.3%. But if carbon dioxide is 0.04% of the atmosphere, And human beings are responsible for 3% of that 0.04%. And Australia's responsible for 1.3% of the 3% of the 0.04%. It's like saying there's a granule of sugar on the Harbour Bridge. Clean the bridge up, it's dirty. Surely if a political party doesn't know the quantum of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, what the hell are we standing the economy on its head for? Demonising coal-fired power, driving everyone into renewable energy, which is not available, not reliable and not affordable, plonking us in electric cars, giving us nearly the dearest electricity in the world when we're rich in energy resources, exporting coal so that China and India and Japan can have cheap electricity, and we sit here swallowing this ideological rubbish, putting industry at risk, jobs at risk, and burying the economy.
It's all a fraud. If you ever thought that there'd been a fraud in the world, this is the biggest. So why are they going on with it? Because the only ones that can stop it is us. And that's why I'm talking to you. And we're going to stop these things. We're going to control them from the realm of the spirit. Because these are demonic activities. And by the way, they're already being crushed.
Take these 5 important steps to participate effectively. Register. It's absolutely free to join. Register using the link displayed, https://bit.ly/wordfest 6-registration. Publicize and participate. Bring at least 5 others on board. Encourage them to register and join you in participating daily. Testify. Share your testimony. Click on the Share Your Testimony button and let the world know how Pastor Chris's teachings have impacted your life. Sponsor translations. Be a part of making 1,000 PCDL messages available in the top 200 languages of the world. Remember to take today's quiz after your study and share your scores on King's Chat using the hashtags #WordFest6, #PostYourScore, #Solutions, everywhere along with your zone or ministry center's hashtag. God bless you as you participate.